Hey everybody, welcome to CSS Cyber Risk Summit. I want to thank Jim and Troy for giving me the opportunity to be here and participate and talk to you guys about AI security. It's an exciting time right now for AI. There's been accelerated evolution of AI. Again, those who have been doing this for a while have been working on machine learning and a few other things for quite a while, building models, etc. But of course, with ChatGPT, it really caught the imagination of people in a personal use of AI. And so that's really accelerated people looking into AI even more. And then some of the advancement in technology that has been happening with GPT and OpenAI, and a lot of that has actually accelerated the use of AI for businesses in a very transformative way. And something that actually brings a lot more accuracy, being faster. Okay, some of you will probably debate the accuracy question, but I think that's something that we can talk about. But it is definitely allowing you to do things that really were not thinkable maybe even 5 years ago. And so, as an example, at Qualys, we recently released this new concept of a cyber risk agent, which is an agentic AI marketplace that allows you to leverage specialized agents for your risk management, right? So you could go and say, I want a Patch Tuesday agent, and use that Patch Tuesday agentic AI agent to augment your overall security team to make the end-to-end outcome of your security team a lot more effective. And so these are capabilities that are being brought about by the significant ramp up in the technology evolution that has been happening. And so before we talk about the security aspects of that, I think we got to go back and talk a little bit about the evolution of computing, right? And so if you go back to the days where we started with client-server architecture, and then moved into multi-tier architecture, and you moved into distributed computing and multitasking, and then multi-threading was cooler than multitasking, and then we moved into virtualization and building sort of all virtual images on the same host, and then we moved into the cloud, and now we're seeing the evolution of AI. And one of the things that's been interesting is, other than the technology itself, the evolution of computing is really moving from back in the day 20 years ago, where you had to manage, deploy every single thing, every hardware, piece of hardware, every compute, every storage, to a more of an ecosystem model now. So everybody who's moving into the cloud, which is pretty much everybody, you are already working on a model that is different from a compute perspective, where we started with infrastructure as a service, where you're just essentially raw capabilities of compute and storage, etc., were being leveraged from the cloud providers, to a more advanced model where you got platform as a service type capabilities, where it wasn't just here's an CPU available on demand, but you could actually, let's take an example of Kubernetes, right? Instead of deploying a Kubernetes cluster on your own and trying to configure it and manage it and scale it every time, we moved into managed Kubernetes. And so the managed service is an inherent part now of your application, of your service that you're providing, and it is dependent on the cloud provider. And so you sort of have this service provider approach, or the ecosystem approach, is where we are going. And with AI, that is actually going to the next level, right? Because if you look at things like Bedrock from Amazon, etc., you are basically giving it, or OpenAI APIs and foundational models being run. Very few people are going to in the future look at running foundational models on their own. You're going to be leveraging services, and use of these services becoming even simpler, because you don't really need much of a configuration, and then you're able to send data, and you're able to get an outcome from that perspective. And so if you kind of look at the evolution from VMware into cloud, was a bit of a lift and shift, but then new companies came in that were cloud native architecture, that were able to scale extremely fast and build applications to disrupt incumbents by leveraging cloud native application. And now what we're seeing, and we're going to continue to see more, is emergence of new players who have an AI native architecture. So they are focusing less on running my own CPU and my own memory and all of that, and my own PaaS service, and focusing a lot more on how can I leverage the different foundational models that are available, different LLMs, agentic AI, to build very fast applications that are disrupting the industry. And so, as you can see, compute is following that, and I would say that it's accelerating in a much quicker pace than what we have seen in the past. And those of you who are familiar with the technical aspects of AI, we just about started leveraging RAG as a way to provide enterprise data to these models so that we can get better responses. And RAG has been great, and it's a vector database, but you have to bring all the data to it. Versus now, very rapidly in the last few months, you're seeing MCP emerge so rapidly that people are almost having a debate: is RAG even relevant in the days of MCP? And again, I'm not picking sides, but it is interesting that the technology that came out just a couple of years ago, already you have something that is moving much faster. And so, as we start to have more and more of this sort of a service provider type approach, where a lot of these services are being essentially run in the cloud, and you're just using these services, that brings up an interesting aspect of security, right? Cybersecurity. And cybersecurity, in my mind, always has these two elements. One is the technical element of cybersecurity, and we can talk a little bit about that, which is, well, what does it mean in the era of MCP servers when it comes to AI security? And what is interesting is that with AI, a lot of it is now becoming very dependent on access, right? Identity becomes very key when it comes to AI, because that is what is providing you sort of this out-of-the-box access to data and responses. And I think in the past, we were very focused on what data was going in and to make sure that that data was controlled, who had access to view the data. But the outcome of this data was very deterministic. In cloud computing era. I think with AI computing and AI native, one of the other things from a security perspective that we have to watch out for is the output of this data, because we have data and we want to try to control what data goes in and what is being used. But also, when asked general questions, the outcome, you can ask any question and it could provide you things that it shouldn't provide you. So there is an added layer of security that needs to be considered that we really didn't have to do as much in the past, which is, how do we manage what is coming out of these AI models and AI native platforms to make sure that they are within the norms of what we want it to say and what we want it to convey? And so security takes this very interesting paradigm now, where in a way MCP makes things fast, but also on the other hand, at the end of the day, MCP is just fronting your old APIs and your old databases and your old services with MCP servers. And so not only is the authentication and authorization to the MCP server and what the MCP server is exposing to its clients is important, and that is something that you have to manage as part of cybersecurity and look at making sure that you're not giving too much access and not too many services are not being exposed. But the fundamental security elements of your APIs, your databases, your vulnerabilities, your misconfiguration of the underlying tools and the underlying resources as part of your MCP server that are being exposed, that security still remains. You still need to make sure that your API is not, providing you information it shouldn't, that it is updated. You still need to make sure that the database is patched and the database services are configured correctly and they're not giving too much information. And so you kind of have these layers of defense where the underlying infrastructure has to have its patches, your applications has to have its configuration and patch management. Then you have your APIs that are exposed, applications that are exposed have to have their own controls, and then your MCP now adds another layer. And then at the end, what your MCP host is giving out as a response also has to be looked at, from making sure that it's not doing something that it shouldn't be doing or responding with things that it shouldn't be. As an example, let's say you have a chatbot that's using MCP server, and one of the MCP servers that's part of that environment, let's say that the chatbot has access to, is providing a resource that has is employee data. Now, being able to say that, okay, what is the role of this particular chatbot, and why does it have access to an MCP server that is exposing an employee resource, is something that you need to look into, right? And so again, as we evolve, these capabilities will come out. But I think that's a technical aspect of it. I think when you look at cybersecurity, a lot of times, and this is not just specific to AI, but a lot of times we don't end up looking at the business context of it. So remember, cybersecurity is a risk management exercise. So at the end of the day, for you to go and invest to managing risk, there is risk mitigation, risk acceptance, and risk transfer. And the same applies when it comes to AI, which is with the use of AI, what is the dollar value risk that you're bringing to the organization? How much of that? Because look, if you don't know how much risk you're trying to mitigate, how do you know how much you should spend to mitigate that risk? So being able to take your AI deployments and map that to your business entities, business outcomes, annual revenue, whatever it is, look at your value at risk, and then being able to say, based on this, this is the equation in terms of how much we should spend on mitigation of AI-related risk, and which areas within AI risk management should we focus on. And that's kind of where, one of the things that we've been doing quite a bit is the concept of a risk operations center, right? Because look, AI is not going to be the only risk, as I said, right? The new AI components is not the only risk in your environment. You still have so many other risks that you have to manage because, again, like I said, the underlying services, etc., is still the same that you have used in the past, and the databases that you have to have still need their configuration management, vulnerability management. And as a lot of you will agree that it's not like cyber budgets are exploding in multiple, double-digit growth right now. So as a leader in cybersecurity, you're going to have to make those choices of which areas of security across the board that you have to focus on. And of course, some of that is going to be on AI. So how much do you rotate on AI security, and how is that tied to the business outcome? And because for the most part, if you're going to invest in AI security, you're going to have to maybe look at where do I not focus on as much, because you might have to move some of your existing budget or part of the budget or whatever it is. So my recommendation in general, when you look at this overall landscape of AI, which is very exciting, AI security, there's a lot of technical things that are coming up new, and we're going to have to work through it and find it. But I think it is very important that as we look into AI security, that we actually really think of how to holistically operationalize and manage risk as the risk operations center, as we call it, the enterprise storage management platform. And I do believe that just like CSA with the cloud has done an important role of ensuring that there are guardrails and guidelines and different things that are provided with CSA Star, etc., so that you can really look at security in your cloud environment. I think the role that CSA is playing and is going to play in the future from an AI security perspective is going to be pivotal. And I look forward to working with CSA and with all of you to really be able to see how do we evolve together to this next generation of AI security that we are all looking at. And would love to hear your feedback, and please connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you have any comments, I would love to hear those. But I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference, and look forward to working with all of you together. Thank you very much.